This video is really for the climbing instructors, the climbing guides, the ski guides, all you out there working with people. Should be an obvious one, but don't be an ass to the public recreating around you. That's the beginning of my post. Let's get into it a little bit more. There's a toxicity within the guide culture, particularly amongst some guides, sometimes even volunteer instructors who have this like, look at me, I'm a guide, look at me, everybody. And they do that by giving unsolicited feedback to those around them. They lecture people around them about the things they're doing in front of their participants, students, what have you. I think that's really problematic. Sometimes they're doing it out because they think something is dangerous, but other times the things just aren't that dangerous. And it really is an off-putting thing that can make the person that you're addressing feel really a lot of anger toward you, to be perfectly honest, and may not ultimately change the way that they're operating. So there are four kinds of practices. There's the best practice, there's common practice, there's marginal practice, and there's dangerous practice. If a guide is well educated and doing a good job, then they're teaching and employing the best practice. But that doesn't mean that they need to lecture everybody who are using other practices. A common practice might be the way most people operate, the way that people normally climb a mountain, ski a peak, whatever. A marginal practice is something that is on the edge. Maybe it's not a common practice. It's not dangerous in the moment, but it could be dangerous later. A dangerous practice is something that is dangerous in the moment and could cause catastrophe either now or in the next very short period of time. An example of a dangerous practice is threading your belay device, but not actually capturing the rope. So you see somebody next to you, they tell somebody they're on belay, but the rope's actually not actually in the device. That's a dangerous practice, and you should say something about that immediately, regardless of how it comes off. You need to say something about that. The person will be thankful. That is a clear mistake, and the person will recognize that. On the other hand, a marginal practice is something that isn't necessarily going to create a catastrophe in the moment. An American death triangle, for example, that's where you have a triangle in your anchor system. It puts undue pressure on the pieces and it's a poor practice. But it's not necessarily dangerous in the moment. And it's not something I'm going to say something to the person next to me about immediately. Maybe if I'm friendly to them and I'm climbing next to them throughout the day, maybe at some point I might take whomever the leader is aside and whisper quietly so nobody else can hear some advice. But I'm not going to do it immediately. I'm not going to do it loudly. I'm not going to call the person out. I'm not going to make the person feel bad. It's not about making the person feel bad. And even then, if that opportunity doesn't arise, I'm not going to do it. It's not my responsibility in that day. It's a marginal practice. You know what else is a marginal practice? Free soloing. But who am I to give Alex Honnold feedback about free soloing? Who are you? And so we don't know sometimes how skilled a person is. If a person is free soloing near us, that's their choice. If a person is touring in the backcountry alone, which a lot of people do, it's a marginal decision. But without knowing their background and their skill set, it's really hard to go out and like lecture that person, especially if you're with others. So if you go out there and you act like an ass and you say, look at me, I'm a guide, I know everything. Well, first off, you don't know everything. The sign of a mature guide is that they recognize that they don't know everything and that they still have tremendous amounts to learn. When you're, look at me, I'm a guiding, it shows a lack of maturity. And when you call somebody out in front of the people who paid you for the day or the people you're leading, it shows not just a lack of maturity, but it shows a lack of professionalism. So I'm going to finish where I started. If you're an instructor and a guide, maybe the number one rule is don't be an asshole.